Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Ryan with Propelio.
You're so chill.
I know.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ryan with Propelio.
Chaos. Hey, good morning. Today is episode 20 of Grant, Teach Me Something. And occasionally spit out some knowledge. So Grant is a big on owner finance and just overall really good mentor type person for the real estate industry. But he comes in every week and helps us out with some knowledge, some training.
Yes.
Can you breathe yet?
I can.
Okay.
I'm enjoying watching you realize that, like, you're like, oh, I'm being really monotonous, so I'm going to add some volume.
Anyways, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about lenders. We're talking about private money. Private money is one of those big cornerstones of making anything work in this business. And it's one of those also mysterious parts that I end up having to talk a lot about with my students because students get so scared. People just get so scared of talking to people about their money. It's an intimidating process to somebody who's not done it before to approach somebody that has money and be like, hey, you want to give it to me?
Yeah, so before we get too hot and heavy into it, call back to a great episode with Mac Lawson a couple months ago. Mac Lawson came in and basically his story was he was I forgot what he did, but he was like a big salesperson where he was always asking for big chunks of money. So when he kind of converted into the real estate world, it was very easy for him to say, hey, Grant, do you have $500,000 for this project? Mm-hmm. Whereas most people would be so like intimidated or shy or just fearful or not have the cojones to say, hey, Grant, I've got a project. Do you want to lend on it?
Right. And I think the way that you say that right there is perfect too, because it's the whole thing. You'll hear me talk about this sometimes if you're watching my like negotiations talks or series or anything like that about how in this business, we're the professionals. We're the ones that are doing it, and so we, in a lot of ways, we are controlling the conversation. Sorry, I was checking that I had unmuted my mic pack from that cough. We're controlling that conversation. So what you've got to keep in mind is this, and I use this example all the time. But when you've got a kid that's running through a living room and there's a bunch of adults there, and I'm sure you've run into this before, like a small child runs through and they fall and they scrape their knee. Well, if every adult in the room pops up and is like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, what does the kid do?
Cry.
They bust out crying and everything's just the worst. But if the adults turn around and they're just like, whatever, get up. And so anyway, blah, 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 what does the kid do?
They're like, they look around confused and they get up and
Exactly.
run around.
Exactly. They look around for a minute. They want to see that cue. They might hold their look, see if anybody cares. And then they just go.
We have B-roll footage of that face.
But then they just go on along with their business, and that's because the adults have controlled that interaction. The adults' reaction, the ones that are in control, have shown that this is how you're going to react to that situation, and the kid follows it and goes along just fine. So we, in this analogy, are the adults.
I was gonna say, what the hell does that have to do with
What are we talking about? Let me tell you a story about fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
No, so we in this analogy are the adults, right? And I use this analogy often when we talk about dealing with our sellers, as well as obviously in this scenario where we're talking about dealing with lenders. If you go into a scenario, and let's say with a sales appointment, and you go into a sales appointment, and you're like, hey, so I can buy your house, and it's worth $150 once I fix it up. So that means that I'm going to be able to offer $100,000 for it. Next, right? If you don't have that confidence, if you are looking for them to say no to you, they're going to say no to you. That's why we've got to be really confident about how we approach any kind of situation. When I approach a seller, I'm unapologetic about what it is. Okay, and I tell them, I'm like, hey, when I fix this house up, it's going to be worth $100,000. It's really in pretty good shape. I don't have to put a whole lot of into it, so I'm going to be able to offer you $100,000 today. Did I say 100 first? I meant 150. Anyway, you just throw that number out there, and through you dictating how that conversation is going to go, they're completely cool with it.
Yeah.
They are relaxed. They understand that you know what you're doing. You're talking about something that you're comfortable with.
And this is off topic, but I think it's important. So I'm gonna let's go down that rabbit hole because that is a skill. Because offering somebody pennies on the dollar for their house, unless you're very stoic and heart of glass, like Mr.
Just completely heartless
or whatever, like Grant, it is kind of a gut check to go, hey, I'll give you $20,000 for your $2 million house, because you want to self cringe because you're, maybe you're a heart person.
Yes.
And you're sympathizing, you're empathizing with that person, but you got to just get in there, Indiana Jones style, rip that heart out.
Kalima!
And then just offer him, like,
That's what I want you to do next time, right before you make an offer to somebody, and you need to pump yourself up for it, and you're looking at your page, just to be like, Kalima! And then just tell them what you want. Just go from there. I think it'll work. It's probably good.
Anyway, back to the topic.
Charge $20,000 for that advice, and you just got it for free.
Yeah, so anyway, we were talking
can you please
about
give an advice?
Is the whole asking people for money, and just, I think what the analogy is, when you're talking about the kid running, if the kid falls and they expect everybody to have a reaction, and then they can cry, they're going to get that reaction or whatnot. So if you're expecting to get that no, you'll probably get a no.
Right. And we are, we're social creatures, and we look for cues from other people about how these conversations are going to go. And especially when you're having a conversation with somebody that you haven't yet had a conversation with, or maybe somebody that you are familiar with, it really doesn't matter on that side. They're constantly going to be looking for nonverbal and verbal cues from you to see if they feel comfortable with moving forward with you. Okay? So just like he pointed out, and I'm really glad you brought that up about Mac, that's exactly how you've got to talk about this stuff. You've got to be very matter of fact. You've got to know what you've got, what you're offering, and just look, hey, this is the project that I have in front of me. It needs $100,000. Are you the right person for this thing? Right? It's a very yes or no, matter-of-fact, logical answer. If you're all, hey, would you lend me, and this is going to be my first deal, and I'm really scared about this, they're going to be cautious about it, and they're going to pump the brakes on it. But if you can confidently approach that and talk to them about their capital, and again, you'll hear me refer to this as capital a lot, and I want to address that here in a second, but you talk to them about their capital and just tell them what you need out of it. Most of the time, they're like, okay, cool, this sounds good. Let's kind of move forward with it, right?
Yeah, then it's what is it called, a buying question? We're like, well, how do I protect myself? That's a buying question. That means they're interested, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, so addressing the whole capital thing, when you're dealing with people, now this is the whole point of this particular private money talk is about dealing with capital that's lower. Loans, right, like the smaller loans. Somebody that has less than $80,000, maybe they've got it in an IRA account, maybe they've got to convert it into an IRA account, but that's not really enough to go out and buy a house and rehab it.
Right.
You can get houses within that range, but they're harder and harder to find. And then there's a whole different box of issues when you're dealing with the lower end properties there.
Yeah, I mean, and people like have sense and he only deals in hood houses.
Right.
So yeah, if you've got $80,000 of private capital, you're probably able to go out and buy like 20 houses.
Right. Yeah. Or mobile homes. There's plenty of things that can be worked in that, but you open yourself up a little bit more to being able to use this kind of capital on a lot more deals if you approach it in this way, okay? So the way that I want you to approach lenders that have less than $80,000 is by telling them pretty much exactly that. That's the first part of the conversation you're going to have with them, is you're going to say, okay, well, let's role play a little bit, okay? And let's say that you've got $70,000 in an IRA account, okay? So this is how this conversation is going to go, and this is piggybacking off of last week's episode 19 of Grant Teach Me Something. I encourage you guys to go back through, watch these things. There's a link in the comments, or not in the comments, in the top description on how to go back to episode 1. Watch through these. But last week we were talking about negotiations. One of my big tips in negotiations was to ask people how you can help them, right? So I'm going to say, and let's say that because our typical lender that's in the scenario isn't in real estate. The typical person that's right here is going to an event to learn how to place their money. And they might kind of have that in their back pocket, but typically they're not going to have experience in the real estate world. They're kind of trying to figure things out. They want to use their money for their own deals, but they're figuring it all out. So my first question to this potential lender is going to be, okay, so what can I do to help you? What's going on?
Well, I've been saving up for my entire life, and I've got a pretty good nest egg. Yeah, I've got some other mortgage, or not mortgage. I've got some other money sitting out there, but I've got a really good chunk of change that I want to place.
Okay.
And I want to get in real estate because I keep on seeing out there that real estate's a good thing. That's why I'm at this event.
Right.
But I got a whole ton of money to really put. I just don't know where to put it or how to get started.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, that's going to be where we can work together. I'm going to be able to help you out with that.
Okay.
Because what I do is I'm in the real estate world. Like, I eat and live and breathe this stuff.
Well, I see your shirt, so obviously that means you're legit, right?
Right, exactly. I even have a logo on my shirt.
Yeah.
That means I'm the real deal.
You have a website, don't you?
I do have a website. Check it out. I also have business cards. Woo, that means I make money. So that's where I'm going to be able to help you out because I eat and live and breathe this kind of stuff. And so if you've got a nest egg that you're trying to place, I mean, what kind of capital are we talking about? What are you trying to place?
I honestly don't feel comfortable saying it because I just met you.
Okay.
But it's pretty significant.
Okay, that's cool. Perfect. Well, I can do different things with different lenders depending on how much capital you have. That's kind of why I'm asking where we're at. So are we talking just general ballpark? I mean, do you have like 2 million plus, or are we at like that 500,000 mark, or are we somewhere like 150 below, something like that?
So when I said I had a significant amount, I didn't realize you were talking about 2 million or 500.
Oh, okay, I got you. Well, no, that's fine. I mean, significant. Is it like 10 grand? I mean, I get.
No, it's more than 10 grand.
Okay.
You know what? It's between 50 and 100.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So 50 and 100 is a good spot to be in. That's a really good spot to be in for you because, it's hard to get that much money. The difficult thing about having a capital amount that's in that range is it makes it really difficult to actually buy and rehab a house with that $50,000 to $100,000 range. Now, if you're closer to the 100 side, then you're going to be able to do that and make that work.
Well, yeah, because there's been some other programs I've looked at, but every single time I'm like ready to sign up, they're like, hey, are you an accredited investor?
Right.
I'm like, shit.
I know, and that can be challenging, especially when you're getting into those funds.
So do I need to be accredited for this?
Well, when we're doing just these one-on-one conversations, so let's remove. That's a really good question. I want to address this outside. Thanks for throwing a good curveball in there for me. Accredited investors. Okay, so typically the way that accredited investor relationships need to work is your relationship with that person is predicated off of something other than marketing that you came at them directly for. I want you to invest in this product right away. And there's a couple of things too. Giving them a lien position on a one-to-one relationship is not the same scenario as where you run into these guys that are doing funds that have to do that have to have accredited investors involved in it because they're doing like a private placement memorandum, that kind of stuff.
What's the word? Damn it! I mean, they're the deal sponsor. Syndication.
Syndication. Yeah. So in those syndications, that's where that really matters. If somebody is asking about an accredited investment, that kind of thing, we do want to address kind of how I'll go here in that same manner, but I want to be sure that you guys understand that syndication, we're not talking about doing syndications necessarily right now. That's going to be something we get to at the end of this episode with their money. But let's kind of jump back into it for the moment and say, you know what, that's a good question because accredited investments, those do really matter a lot of times when you're doing those big funds, when you're having to put that capital in for somebody else to use as part of a fund and you've got a private placement memorandum, that kind of thing. If you're using your own money for yourself, obviously, you don't have to be an accredited investor. I work with a lot of people who have those medium-sized capital amounts like what you're talking about and give lien positions on properties so that it's a one-to-one relationship on what's going on with your investment and the property itself. And that allows you to actually place your capital and make returns on your money. And I get, like, if you're here, you're trying to learn how to do the real estate, right? I mean, are you trying to get in there and actually do it yourself?
I want to be you.
So what's happening right now is you're trying to learn, and all the while, you've got this money sitting in an IRA not doing anything for you. So my proposal is instead of having it that way, I can place your capital for you while you're learning, while you're trying to figure all this kind of stuff. So your capital's actually making returns for you. And then whenever you get ready and you think that you can do this stuff all on your own, just let me know, and we'll stop placing the capital for you, and you can go off and use it yourself.
So when you say like a lien, does that mean like if I don't like a code enforcement, I didn't mow my lawn lien?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to that. It's like basically more like a mortgage, right? If you've got a mortgage, they've got claim to the property. That's what the lien is going to be. So you'll have claim to the property. Now, the challenge is, depending on where you are in that 50 to 100 range, it kind of, there's some...
70. It's 70.
Okay, good. So you've got 70 grand. That's perfect. 70 grand is a great place to go, but it does, like I mentioned before, it does make it a little bit more difficult to place that as a first lien position. Because what that means as first lien position is you've got to have enough money to buy the house and to fix up the house within that 70 grand. And what we're seeing here is that those $70,000 houses, those $100,000 houses, they're just harder and harder and harder to find. But what I can do, and what I've got a lot of lenders that do with me, is we will use that second lien, or that capital that you have as second lien capital. Because I find houses all the time that might be $10,000 behind on payments, and they may need $20,000 in repairs to be worth $200,000, $250,000. So I'm going to take over on their mortgage.
I don't know if I like the sound of that, because I was on Facebook and I found this Facebook page, Propelio, and on Monday they had an episode where this guy Daniel was talking about wiping out his second lien.
Right, yes. And you do have to be careful of who you deal with second liens. I mean, I want to be very upfront about that second liens are less protected than first liens. So you've got to be very sure about the person that you're investing with when you're doing second lien money. I've got a lot of second lien lenders. I can connect you with one of them. Pause. I should probably not put that in for your pitch, but that's something that I would pitch in that point in time. Let's rewind. Let me address that as though I'm you and you've never done a second lien lending situation like this. So you're talking about the second lien and it being wiped out, and be like, yeah, you're totally, like, you've got to be very sure of the person that you're investing with when you do that. And I take it very seriously to take care of our investors, because you know what? I get it. Like, you're just coming here. This might be early on in your career. I've been around for a while, and if there's one thing that I've learned in this business is that you don't last long if you've screwed anybody over, especially lenders. And if you've got a lender that gets wiped out, I'm never going to get money from anybody ever again. So my number one priority is making sure that I take care of you. Right. Even if something bad happens with that first lien position, I'm going to make sure that I'm taking care of you, and that's how we will make sure that this is happening. And I'll be even willing to do a personal guarantee on that loan. Pause again. You guys, if you're doing your first loan in this way, don't be afraid. I mean, I say don't be afraid. Obviously, you want to avoid the personal guarantee. This person is really scared of what's going on. Maybe you've got to throw that personal guarantee in. And what I mean by personal guarantee is, like with me, my loans all go into the LLC, and I don't sign personally for them. So if worst case were to happen and everything went to crap and we were unable to repay, I don't have any personal liability on it. Now, again, for me, I have a long-standing track record with a lot of people and a lot of money out there that says that I'm going to make sure that my lenders get taken care of. And that's why it's just, they're safe, they're comfortable with doing that. But you might not have that track record to pull on. You might not have a recognizable name to pull on. So things that I'm going to be able to use in my favor. So you might have to do a personal guarantee, which means that, let's say that your first lien forecloses in this situation. You've got their money out there. You personally have to figure out how you're going to get them that 20 grand. Now, communication is huge in that. If you do run into a situation like that, you've got to make sure that your lender is taken care of. There is nothing more important. When you start talking about doing private money, there is nothing more important than making sure that your private lender gets paid. You can lose all the money in the world as long as your private lender gets paid.
I was going to try to stay in character, but on that's a good point, because Daniel, he talks about it's fine and dandy to show a potential lender HUD after HUD after HUD of all the money you made, but when you can show a HUD where you lost money and your lender was made whole, that's a little bit, it's not, to me it just sounds more credible. It's because, like, look, yeah, I can sit here and tell you that 100% of the time it's all winners. But, every once in a while there is a loser. But guess what? Even when I'm losing, I'm still going to pay you off because that's the right thing to do, because my word is my bond. And like Grant was saying, reputation is everything. So here's proof from a HUD, from the title company, legal document that shows that where I lost 10, 20, whatever grand, but my lender was made whole with interest, with everything. So if you can produce that, that's a win.
Right, totally.
Because it's a win in the future, because it's credibility.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So let's rewind here and let's just kind of unpack that conversation that we had before we go further. We would be able to close with that. Now, Ryan is doing a good job for you in that he's being harder than most of these lenders that you are going to talk to.
Sorry.
No. But that's good because it brings up the different conversations that you might have. I'll tell you right now, most times that you have that conversation with somebody, it's going to be pretty simple. It's going to be, hey, I don't really know what to do. I've been saving up. I've got some money. And you're going to say, okay, well, you know, I have deals, so I can place your capital for you. And that's how I want you to phrase this when you're talking to somebody in that price range, or really in any price range when you're getting private money. I don't want you to use the words like, well, have you considered lending that money out? Have you considered becoming a lender?
I like the word
Placing capital. That is how I always refer to this kind of situation with my lenders. It's because now it does a subtle little switch. You know, it's part of the negotiation of it all. It does a subtle little switch of now no longer are they doing you a favor by lending you money. You're doing them a favor by placing their capital. Okay? So when you're talking about the money, we're going to remove it from dollars. We're going to remove it from money. We want to remove that word from the conversation. We're making it capital. Now what I'm trying to do by calling it capital instead of anything else is hopefully that puts it in their brain, because when do we hear capital? When do we hear the word capital being used? Like in reference to money?
Like capital gains, or I'm
all,
not sure where you're going.
Well, where I'm going with it is it's all business related.
Yeah.
Right? Anytime you hear somebody talking about capital, it's all business money. When you hear somebody talking about money or dollars, that goes back to like cash. You know, cash. That's my money. That's something that I have. But if we are referring to it as capital, now no longer do they have that personal relationship with the money that's in their account. Now it is, I own an account that has this thing that has stuff for businesses to use, right? So you've got capital. I can place that capital for you.
I'm not done with our role play, though.
We can go back to the role play.
I still have some things.
Okay, good. We'll go back to it. Let's take a note of where we were. Where were we when we stopped on the?
Well, first of all, we were talking about the first lien, the second lien. I can get references using HUD
right.
and whatnot.
That's where we kind of were.
And then we were talking about the personal guarantees.
Okay, personal guarantee.
But what I was going to follow up that with next, I could do it in character or out.
Well, let's get back to it after this, because I want to continue to unpack where we are to this point, because we went through a lot of stuff that I want you guys to learn from in just that first part. But we're going to get there. Don't be sad.
He doesn't like my character.
Don't be sad. I love your character. Okay, so we're talking about placing their capital for them, all right? Then, when you're talking to these people at events, and I kind of glazed past this point, go to events. Go to networking events and talk to people, especially if it's a how to use your IRA money event, especially if it's a Quest event or you know, one of those, anywhere where people are going to be going, but especially like right now in this market, we've got way more money than we do houses on the market. So there's no excuse. If you have a real estate deal, you should have private money to back that up, because there's tons more money than there is actual deals going on right now, especially in this DFW market. So there are people, I would bet, without exaggeration, probably about 30% to 35% of the attendees of any one given random event are people that are there because they have money and they are trying to figure out how to make money in real estate with that money. So you should be able to get that, okay? So we're approaching people. Everybody's first conversation question is, how can I be of help? They may be very sly about it. They may not want to jump out and say, hey, I've got money in this account. They're going to say, well, I'm just trying to learn. I'm trying to learn, right? That's why they're there. That's going to be one of the common answers. So that's when you're going to reply with what I told you last week. Okay, well, do you have time? What are you trying to leverage? Do you have time? Do you have money? Do you have knowledge? What do you have that you're working with, right? And that is when they're going to be like, well, you know, I've got an IRA account that we're trying to place and blah, 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 so I'm trying to figure out a way to make make money on it. And then that's when you're going to cue in with exactly what I started this conversation on our role play with. Okay, well, that's where I'm going to be able to help you, okay? Now, that's where I'm helping you. Again, we're the adult in this conversation. We're the adult, they're the child in that analogy. We're steering this conversation. That's where I'm going to be able to help you. So here's the deal. I get properties. I get deals. I'm out there marketing. I live and breathe this stuff. This is what I do. I know you're trying to learn how to get into it, but I'm already there. And then one of the things that you can do that's kind of a social proof authority thing is say, and no matter how much money you have, when you're doing real estate like this, you will always spend all of it. We always need more capital. So if you, because that's a little bit of a posturing.
Yeah, because that's always questions like, well, if you do so many deals, how come you don't have money?
Mm-hmm. And so it's a little bit of a posturing statement of just like, no matter how, we could spend $2 million by next month, you know? And so no matter how much you have, it'll get spent. We're always looking for more capital. So if you've got capital and you're just trying to learn how to do this stuff right now, I can place your capital for you while you're trying to learn, because you want to support their dreams. The people who are there that want to learn how to do the real estate, you want to support them. You want to try and help them get into the real estate and do that. But in a very real sense, it takes time. It takes 6, 8, 9 months before you're really kind of rolling once you start learning. What are they doing with their money in the meantime? It's just sitting there rotting. So you are going to place their capital for them while they are trying to learn, and then one of two things is going to happen. Either you've placed their capital for them and they like how it's going and they just say, well, screw it. If I don't have to learn how to do real estate and I can just make my money from lending it to this guy, then cool. And then you've got a fund that you can turn over and over and over again. Or they're going to go out and learn how to do it, and eventually they're going to say, okay, well, you know, actually I'm going to be using my money for this project I'm trying to fund coming up next. And you're going to say, cool, well, I'm glad I was able to help you while we were here. And then you've got other lenders lined up that you're doing this exact same way. So those are really important points. You're placing their capital while they try to learn. And then lastly, when you've got this under $80,000 investment, explaining to them that it's difficult to find first lien loans in that amount, because most of the time they're very aware of that. Most of the time, if they've got less than $80,000 and they tell you, well, you know, I've got 80 grand, and you say, oh, okay, well, that's great. That's awesome. That's a good amount to go with. It is going to be difficult to find a first lien position for $80,000, because that means that you have to buy the house and do the rehab all under 80 grand. And those kinds of houses are just not really out there as much as the rest of the houses. But what I can do is I'm able to place that capital for you as second lien position, because I run into a lot of houses that, and then like I explained in this role playing, you know, they might be $10,000, $20,000 behind on payments, and I might need to put in $20,000 worth of rehab on this property. So ultimately, I've got to put 40 grand of cash in to make this deal work. But once we do that, the house is worth 200, 225. And so we can use your capital for deals like that, to catch loans up and do the rehab costs. And I'll tell you what, most of the time, the people that you're talking to in this range are cool with that. They're like, oh, okay, cool, because they already understand it's hard to place $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Even though it's a lot of money, it's hard to place that. It's hard to find a spot for it. So when you're presenting a solution, that's great for them. And now what that opens up is that opens up your ability to buy houses subject to, catch them up with private money, put the money in with the rehab, and leverage everything out that way. So you're setting up yourself cash flowing properties that are going into your long-term portfolio through using smaller loans from lenders like this.
And because you live and die and breathe this every time, you glazed over something very quickly right there. Using a second lien private capital on a sub-2 purchase. And what I mean by the whole glazing over is that original mortgage is that first lien.
Correct.
So, you know...
Because, just to be clear, what defines lien position? What is the only thing that matters in lien position?
Who raises their hand first?
Who raises their hand first? Date and time of filing is the only thing that matters in lien position. Doesn't matter the amount of the lien. It matters when they filed it. So if you're buying a house subject to, which means essentially taking over on payments, you're going to buy the house, you become the owner of the house, but you're leaving the mortgage to Wells Fargo in place. Well, that mortgage was filed 6 years ago, so it's in first lien position. Mm-hmm. Any lien that goes on that property at this point is going to be subordinate to that loan.
Right.
And that's where we're plugging in lenders like this who only have $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Is we're allowing them to place their capital through catching that loan up on its back payments and doing the rehab dollars for it.
And you may be like, well, if I'm doing sub-2, why do I need a second lien? Because, you know, aren't I just taking over payments? But sometimes it's a hell of a deal, and you're still giving the person 20 grand to walk away. So,
right.
And do you want to spend your own 20 grand, or do you want to get private capital
right.
for that 20 grand?
Leveraging that out.
Leverage it, yeah.
So it's a really good idea to have this in your back pocket, because you're going to run into a lot of people that have $20,000 to $80,000. So you need to have a meeting with them and just understand and keep a list of who these people are and how much capital they have available to them, so that when you're out on your next appointment with your seller and you find a deal where it's like, man, I could buy this sub too if I only had freaking $30,000 in cash on my side. Boom, here you go. Go back to your list.
I have a feeling our role playing is dead. So
No.
therefore, I'm just going to throw
Okay,
out, hey, second lien. Well, what does that mean? It's like, well,
Right.
there's a third party, the title company, who's going to set all this up for everything to where you are protected, and it's not just a handshake and whatever an expression there is. I don't know. A handshake.
Yeah, a handshake.
But it's a third party, protection from the title company,
Right.
And it is, everything's there legit,
Right. And
so
in my experience, the lenders in this situation, the people you're talking to, don't have so much of an issue with like the technicality of it, but you need to be able to explain to them what a second lien is, right? You need to be able to explain to them that is in a the most protected position. And again, we don't want to use negative words, we use positive words, right? So instead of saying you're less protected than a first lien, you're going to say the most protected position is the first lien position, where if they had to foreclose, they got all their money back and everything else underneath it wipes out. That's why it's ill-advised to do second lien lending with just some random Joe Schmo that doesn't rub you the right way.
And is living in the house.
Right, or yes, anything like that. So this is really about your rapport building and making sure that they understand that you are going to take care of them. Just like he said about Daniel. Daniel, if he's able to show an example, a HUD of, hey, this is where I lost money, but my investor got taken care of. But also use the spiel that I gave you a second ago if you don't have that experience of just saying, look, I've been here long enough to know that anybody who screws anybody over in this business does not last. Especially if I mess over one of my lenders, no one's ever going to lend to me again. It's a very small world in this business, and word gets around quickly.
Just join your local Facebook group and be like, hey, what do you think of so-and-so? And if the sharks come to play, because, not everybody is going to spend the time to, I don't know what a social experiment that was, but, just look at any kind of restaurant. It's like their reviews. Yeah, it's okay. It's good. It's good. I guarantee you, if it's bad, you're going to hear about it because, people love to bash on what they don't like.
Yeah.
They're less open about saying what they do like.
Right.
I do want to get back to the scenario, though, in this situation, because at the very beginning we were talking about I'm at this event to learn the business.
Right.
And in this scenario, hey, I'm placing the capital so you can learn the business. On that note, hey, well, is there opportunity, just a mini role play, is there opportunities to maybe shadow and learn from you? And if I'm going to give you your money, or giving you my money, can I at least learn?
Right.
Can I use that as a mentorship type opportunity?
Right. So this is going to be, I'll pause that for a second and tell you that y'all's answer to that is going to be different from my answer to that. Because I do charge for mentorships, right? That is something that's a legitimate business plan on my side. I charge $20,000 for a one-on-one mentorship. And so my response is going to be, well, I don't really do a mentorship type scenario on that, but if you're lending into the deal, absolutely. You can come watch the rehab as it's going forward. I'll put the numbers in front of you. That's totally fine with me. If you want to see how that's going, I can keep an open door for you. I'm just not going to be able to really turn this into meetings and training sessions off of it and hold your hand through the deal. As a lender, you're a lender. It's my deal. I'm making sure that this is going to work. But I'll walk you through everything and show you how that deal is working if you want to go on those appointments, that kind of thing.
Send me copies of this. And
right.
Maybe be a fly on the wall when you're negotiating.
Okay. Be open to that, because that is going to be one of the responses that you'll get decently commonly is somebody who is there to learn. They're going to be like, oh, well, cool. And that might even be a door that you want to open before they open it. If you don't have this kind of capital available to you, you can even open that door and just be like, look, and if you're interested in seeing how this is going, I'll take you to the house. I'll show you how we're rehabbing it, that kind of stuff.
So on the flip side of that scenario, we're already in the loan, we're already halfway through the rehab, but I'm abusing the trying to get knowledge, because that happens. You ask anybody that's been doing deals, you get hit up all the time for free knowledge. It's like, hey, I'll buy you a cup of coffee, give me your 10 years and millions of dollars worth of experience, for a cup of a coffee, or price of a cup of coffee. Right. So how do you combat that? Where it's like, look, you're just the lender, get back off. That comes off as that can be a difficult situation. And what I'll tell you is, if that's the situation with that one, you've got to play it very, it's a very dynamic situation at that point. And you've got to play it right.
And you've got to give them answers and be nice to them and handle and give them what you can on that and maybe have a couple of meetings. But oftentimes you just have to say, I'm sorry, I honestly, I just don't have time to go to those types of meetings. You're welcome to meet me. I'll let you, like, I'm headed out to the house.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. Or I'm headed out to the house on Thursday to look at the rehab. I'm going to be there for an hour. And I have to do the things that I need to do at the house, but I'm happy to kind of let you shadow at that situation or whatever, right? And then, if that's the type of lender, maybe that's not the lender that you use on your next project.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And they're calling it, hey, when's the next deal? It's like,
right.
Well, no.
Right. And at that point in time, well, I just don't have anything that I'm working on right now that that we would need your capital for, but I'll let you know as we start. So you've got to understand that stuff can happen, but what's most important is having that money in your back pocket, right? Having or that tool in your back pocket to use that capital for your deals.
What about, like, because I know we were talking about the second lien on a sub 2 deal, but what about, let me just go this rabbit hole. I don't know anybody that does it, but who knows? Maybe I get a hard money loan from a big guy, but they don't cover the entire cost, and I still got to bring 20 to 30 to the table. Is it advisable to get a second lien on that?
You can, depending on your hard money guy. See, because a hard money guy, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter to them because they're in first lien position. If they don't get their money, they can foreclose and get it back. Now, that said, most hard money people will not allow you to close the deal with second lien money, okay, because they might need points up front and they might need you to put some skin in the game right up front. And they will not let you close that deal with second lien money. But you could come in after that with second lien money, reimburse yourself, and then use the money for the rehab going forward. But either way, let your lender know what your plans are. There's nothing more important than the transparency here, that everybody knows what's going on so that their lenders don't find out about each other later and be like, oh, wait, what? What's going, that kind of thing.
What about the scenario, because I'm just shotgun, machine gun some scenarios. I've got, Daniel over here who's got $100,000 to place, and I've got Grant here. Well, that's not nice. I'm not going to say you have a less bank account.
I probably do.
Whatever. $100,000 over here, but
I think I've got like $25 in my account.
Better than me. The deal, I need 20 in rehab, but in the deals, I buy it for 100, but I need 20.
Right.
So I get a private capital from Daniel for 100, and I'm like, hey, can I get 25 from you? Is that a scenario that is kosher, or how does that work out?
It could work, but again, I want you to be very transparent with both lenders so that they understand what's going on whenever you're doing that. Because sometimes the Daniel will be fine with that, sometimes they won't. And you want to make sure, right? They want to make sure that they're getting into something that's wise there. I do want to address here. DeMarcus has a question about the personal guarantee. Yeah, the personal guarantee means the loan is going to the LLC, but you are signing your personal name and giving your personal liability to the loan. You might have to do that on a few loans to get started, and then again, whenever you get down to like on the back end and you're doing kind of bigger deals, a lot of times with the bigger deals, you've got to put your personal guarantee on it as well. Just understand it's not unreasonable for them to ask for a personal guarantee from you if that comes up. You would rather not have the personal guarantee, but until you have that track record that shows what's needed, be expectant of that to happen.
And Angel pointed out, hey, great info. Hey, thanks for love. But then they were saying, just say, hey, I need $30,000. You will get $10,000 in return on top of your principal. People will lend you cash if they are comfortable. I don't know about that, because if I'm only getting 30, why am I giving them 30?
That's a 33%.
That's a huge return for. That's like more of a JV situation where they've got skin in the game too. So I'm not saying it's a no, but 33% return just for somebody's money,
right?
And
not
I'm
worth
responsible and I have all the risk. That's not worth it. If they've got skin in the game and they're part of the risk side of it, where if the whole deal goes belly up, they get nothing. That's a different situation.
Right.
But if we're just talking about from a private capital situation, 33% is pretty insane.
Totally. And if they are going to do that kind of deal.
But thank you for joining in.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are going to do that kind of deal where they're getting a big, huge return or something, maybe it can be worth it to you if you don't have to do any debt servicing. Like if they're putting all the money up to take it down, like a $30,000 deal probably is not going to be that. But if they're putting all the money up for a deal, so that you can go in there, buy the house, and rehab. Now we're talking about first lien position. We're talking about big percentages like that. Buy the house, put the rehab up, and they want some kind of big percentage. Maybe that makes sense if you don't have to pay them debt service while you have the property taken down.
And when you're earlier in your real estate career, yeah, getting creative like that. But once you've been established, I mean, Grant will tell you. I mean, we had a meeting like a couple weeks ago where we were meeting with a potential lender, and the lender was like, "Hey, I've got like $10 million," and Daniel and Grant were just like, "So, money's easy in this market. Money's easy."
And I know that sounds ridiculous to you, but that's a perfect example, because going back to like how I said, most of my students are so scared of getting money. And I've got a lot of students, you know, right now I'll have students that come up to me and they're like, "Hey, I've got this deal. Can you put the money in?" And I'll tell you right now, I don't put my money in other people's deals. That I've got a lot of money backing me, but that goes into my deals. If I'm putting my name on the line with a lender, it's going to be me that has total control over everything that's happening, right?
Yeah, I love that question. Hey, do you know any private capital guys? Like, no.
Yeah, I've never met one in my life. No. But here's the thing is that, like he said, that's a perfect example. We literally had a guy sitting there with 10, 20, 30, or $30 million ready to go, and both Daniel and I were just like, okay, well, why should I use you? Like, what's the big deal? Like, there is a ton of money. I literally right now have about $70 million backing me that I can't place. There's just too much money to place. Some of it's earmarked for certain things. Like if you've got a subdivision that you want to sell, let me know. If you've got, you know, that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of capital out there. Let me address Jeremy's question. This is a really good question. I have a few private capital partners. The expectation is they have their capital returned within 6 months to a year. And I'd like to pitch them longer terms. How can I make the switch and still keep them stoked about investing with me?
I have an idea, but I'll let you
go for it.
Well, it's not my idea. I'm blatantly stealing from Daniel.
Okay.
Which is, up front, when you first do the loan, in the terms, you structure it like a hard money loan, but at the 6-month mark, you have an option to extend. Mm-hmm. And the option to extend is usually just, you know, maybe another point, maybe another point and a half, whatever your origination terms are. Uh-huh. But, you know, hey, an option to extend, hey, here's another point for that option.
Yeah. That can be
that you pay at the 6-month mark.
That can be a good way to get your extensions. That's one of the ways that hard money works. Is that you have it's typically with hard money a 6-month term with an extension option to go to that 12-month.
Well, most hard money lenders offer that extension. Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know that.
From 6 months to a year. That's kind of that's pretty typical on how, because they want it back in 6 months, and then
Daniel was special.
and then they'll get an extra point or so to extend out to that year mark. Here's the thing: is that when you ask assertively and with confidence, and you tell them what you're offering, you're not asking, that's where the key is, right? Because they can either take it or leave it. My terms when I'm getting short-term money is 18 months. I do 18-month loans with my lenders, right, on the short-term side. And I just tell them, you know, my lenders, and I'm going to give you a couple of good tricks here. This is going to be your...
But you're getting 18 months on flips or on the sub-2 deals?
On flips, on my private money, total. Because I can do flips, I can do sub-2 deals. Now, sometimes my sub-2 deals, it all depends on backing into the deal, seeing how fast you can get them paid off. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 8, sometimes, you know, it's 1, right? It really depends. And then you just approach your lender and you say, this is the deal, do you want it or not, right? And go from there. So these are, oh man, you made me forget my fire emoji things. What was I going to do with my fire emoji? Oh, yeah. Okay, so this isn't my fire emoji, but it's still a good tip. Sorry, man. I had a good tip, and I left it.
Let me build back on, unless you're.
Well, no, I've still got something to go on. So getting your longer term deals, I approach with an 18-month term, right? And it's just, oh, here's the fire emoji. You say, this is how I can place your capital. I need $30,000 for this project, and what we would do is we would do it for an 18-month term, and I pay anywhere from 8 to 12% or whatever it is that you're willing to pay these people, right? And then just make your deal. It's 10%, 18 months, and I need $30,000 for this project. Yes or no, kind of thing. And negotiate off of that. Just like you're negotiating a purchase of a house. Mm-hmm. It's a negotiation. You've got to throw out your offer, see if they accept it, and if they do, then you're good to go. Here's where the fun comes in. Here's how you can actually start working things out for yourself bettering in the future. If you're looking for long term, and you're going to use the same, idea as what we, in that particular meeting that we were talking about. And by the way, let me just say that meeting that we had, the guy was awesome and super knowledgeable, knew what he was talking about, really had the capital, and it was a two-way street, right? We're figuring out what they want, they're figuring out what we want, and trying to meet in the middle. So by no means when we're like, by no means are we putting down the lender on that side. But the other side of this is when we want that longer-term money. So here's the phrase that you use to start getting better terms. Is if you can currently get, so right now you said you get private capital and they want it in 6 months. Let's say that your private capital is at 12%, okay? The way to start seesawing yourself into a better position, that's probably not the best, there's a better analogy for that, is you say, well, you've got $70,000 right now. Currently, I'm getting my money at 12%, but it's a 6-month term. So if you want me to use your money instead of their money, we just need to beat what I'm currently getting, and I'll start using yours instead. Right? Now they're bidding for your business. Right. And so now you've told them what you get, and if you can get that, then cool. That's the minimum you will ever get. But you're also telling them, beat that, and I'll start using you instead. So if you want more time, say, what I really want is 18-month terms. If you can do 18 months at this 12%, we're golden. Okay? So then you get a yes to 18 months. Now the next conversation you have is you say, well, my current money that I get is at 12% in 18 months. So if you want me to use your capital instead of theirs, we're just going to have to beat those terms. So if you can do like 10% in 18 months, we're golden, and I'll use you. And then, well, my current is 10% in 18 months. So if you can do 8% in 18 months, then we're good. That's how you start working your better and better and better and better positions in your lending until you're ultimately to that 8% 5-year money or whatever it is that you're looking for. Like right now, my best money that I get is 20 years, 9%, or 20 years and 8.5%. And it was through using that exact technique of just like, this is what I get. You want me to use yours instead? What are you going to do to get my business?
So, yeah, there's that aspect of the bidding war in the competition. But I would, if we're still talking about Jeremy, what I would say is Did you break your audio?
I muted it and didn't unmute it. Thanks.
I don't know what's going on. But anyway, welcome to Propelio. What I was saying is like, if you know what your expectations are for the deal, and the expectations are going to be an 8-month, a 10-month, a 12-month, just be upfront about it. And then when you're pitching the deal to your private capital people, be like, look, this is a 1.5-year project. I expect this, the worst case scenario this, and this is probably this going to be this. Best case scenario is this. And just be upfront about all that. You don't need to go into all the crazy details that you would with a hard money loan. But if your expectations are 9 months, you need to be shopping for the 9 months,
right.
not the 6 months. And I understand, you know, what he was talking about, what Grant was talking about was all of his money is 18 months. But you know, if a deal, might not need 18 months if you know the deal's only going to be a 3-month deal.
Yeah, but I get the loan for 18 and I pay it off early.
Of course you do. But I'm just saying, if you're used to getting 6 months, you know, maybe that's just because you're just kind of doing that blanket terms.
Sure.
But you know, when you're approaching these people, make them feel special, and each deal is unique.
Yeah. It is, and you've got to really work with what they're looking to get from it. So let's kind of hit the runway on this and kind of recap what we've talked about here. Things that I want you guys to use is we are placing capital, right? We're placing capital for them. We're separating the word money. We're separating the word lending. We're not asking them to lend us money because, the other thing is I don't pay points on my money. You know, it's 8% 20 years or 8% 18 months, no points. But I do pay more. Here's my last fire emoji that I wanted to give you guys. When you are talking to your lenders and they are not telling you how much money they're willing to lend yet, tell them, well, I pay anywhere between 8 and 12% depending on how much capital you have. So if you've got like over 500,000, I can start doing that 12% rate for you because that's bulk. That allows me to use more, and I'm willing to take less of a profit on those kinds of deals. And what that does is somebody who may have been a little bit stingier on their pocketbook and they wanted to test you out with 150 or 250, but they've got 500, well, now all of a sudden they might commit that 500 so that they can get your better rate, right? So that's another really good way to get the most capital out there. But again, talking about it as capital, with these lower end, the below $80,000 kind of thing, offering, hey, we can place your capital while you're trying to learn this business. Once you learn, go ahead and use it. But if you end up just liking being in this position where you don't have to do anything and I'm doing all the work and you're making money, we can keep going on that relationship too. Second lien positions, which allow you to do the subject to owner finance purchases. That gives you your rehab money. That gives you your catch-up money. You can sometimes use that rehab money on other private money, like hard money, private money lenders, that kind of stuff that are in first lien position, but you need to be very transparent with them. And then finally, and most importantly of all, always take care of your lender. There is not anything more important than making sure your lender gets paid.
You think the real estate world is small?
Yeah.
The real estate world with people that actually have the money?
Yeah.
That's even smaller.
If you have one time that you have ever not paid your lender, you will never get money again. That is the most important thing. Do everything you can, lose all the money in the world on your side. You will never let your lender lose their money. That is paramount. Nothing happens past that. So within those realms, guys, now's the time. Now's the time to be going to the meetings. I expect you this month to go to at least one meeting. And if you're in San Antonio or Houston or Dallas, I know of a good one that you can attend. You're just going to leave me to dry.
We're having the San Antonio REI meetup on the 23rd, 4th, and we'll be in Dallas here at the Grapevine DFW area on May 7th.
Right, so talk to people there. Go to, I know NTA REI here in Dallas has a really good club. I like going to his clubs, Roger Hawkins. Just find your local clubs and go talk to people. How can you help them? This is all about helping them. How do you get that yin-yang where you use their strength, which is capital, with your strength, which is real estate, to get you both to the goals that you want to get?
Because even, there's a networking event every single day, pretty much. There's an educational event every single day. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are just full of sales pitches. That being said, regardless of the content, regardless of the quality, regardless of the event itself, if there are warm bodies in the room, that's an opportunity to build your business. Mm-hmm. So even if it is the shittiest meetup of all time, if there are people there, that is an opportunity to grow your business.
Right, and you never know. I mean, I went to a meetup last month that had 5 people there, and one of them was like this multi-million-dollar, does all these commercial deals, takes down subdivisions and apartment complexes and that kind of stuff. And you just never know what you're going to run into and who you can, and we're going to be working together on some projects moving forward. So you never know. You've got to get out there, you've got to network and get that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm not very humble at all.
If you liked what you saw, please give us some love. Please give us some likes and shares and spread this video out there. Lovely. That's awesome. Thank you, Travion. If you like what you saw, please give us some likes. Please give us some shares. Obviously, everything we do here is for free, at least on the show, at least.
Right.
If you want to be a subscriber, yeah, you got to pay a little money. But Propelio, if you're looking for access to your MLS comps, if you're looking for websites, or investor websites, if you're looking for off-market leads, check out Propelio.com. As stated earlier, we do have our meetups in San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas-Fort Worth. And coming soon, we'll be in Austin as well, but we're just not there just quite yet. But as far as the show, keep watching these videos. Keep growing your business. We strive that everything we do up here is not just us, ego tripping and oh, cool, we like to be on camera, we like to be on the internet.
I mean, it's mostly that.
Well, yeah, the interwebs, woohoo, Google my name, nothing shows up, damn, got to do more work. But, we strive that this stuff is actually actionable. It's all fine and dandy to learn this stuff, but if you can't apply it and actually take action with it, it's all useless. And not only are you wasting your time, but you're wasting our time because we're doing this so you can have actionable nuggets. Fire emoji, flamethrower, whatever.
All right.
So take what you've learned today and apply it. Go challenge yourself at the next event you go to that you hit up 2 to 3 people, at least 2 to 3 people, and see if you can get some money for your next deal.
Right, absolutely. And guys, like I said, my name's Grant. I'm from CreativeCashFlow.com. If you like my specific teaching style and want to learn more from me, specifically on...
You said that so passive, like, I mean,
I hope you like
everything
me.
he taught today was about be firm, be assertive, and really go for the jugular when you're going this. He's
Right.
like, you
You
like me.
like me. But it's true. If you like what you're seeing here and you do like this kind of teaching style, I teach everybody how to do seller financing from start to finish. You can check me out, CreativeCashFlow.com. We do a live, weekly Q&A session every Monday night, and you've got just tons of stuff to learn from there. But I do appreciate you guys being here. I love the interaction. If you've got any questions, please, please, please put them in the comments section, because we want to make sure that we're getting your things answered. And any topics that you might want to learn about, throw it in here, and we can talk about that in a future week as well. So thanks for being here with us today. Thanks for being here with Propelio. Check out Propelio. It's an awesome piece of software. We're here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. for Grant Teach Me Something, and I expect to see you guys next week.
Slow-mo high five on the way out. See you next time. Or not.